In this lecture, I will consider a physical design of different type of oscillators. This lecture will cover mainly the phase shift oscillator, Wien-Bridge oscillators, Colpitts and Hartley oscillators. First, consider the phase shift oscillator. You can see this is the diagram of the phase shift oscillator where this block which is denoted as this A naught, that is basically the base amplifier having the midband open loop gain A naught, and this network represents the feedback network which provides the positive feedback. Each RC section offers a 60-degree phase shift of this output voltage, and when it gets fed to the input, so due to this each RC section there exists three RC sections, so each RC section provides 60-degree phase shift, so three RC section provides 180-degree phase shifts. So as a whole there exist total 180-degree phase shifts. So, but we know in order to provide the positive feedback we must have 360-degree phase shift. So that is why we generally prefer this base amplifier be such that the output of this base amplifier, output signal of the base amplifier generally differs in phase by 180 degree than its input. And such kind of amplifiers such as the bipolar junction transistor, when you are using in common emitter mode, the output voltage differs from the input voltage by 180 degree. Similarly, an operational amplifier with inverting configuration differs in phase of output than the input by 180 degree. Such kind of amplifier can be used over here, so that the 180-degree phase, when you incorporate within this feedback path, the initial 180-degree due to the input output phase difference and the additional 180-degree to this feedback path offers as a whole 360-degree phase difference, and that makes this feedback positive. But the 180-degree phase that the this signal is gaining when it's get fed to the input, that 180-degree phase shifts in phase can occur only for one frequency, only for single frequency, and the frequency at which that phase shift is taking place, at that frequency oscillation takes place. And we know from our previous lecture how the this feedback originates this sinusoidal waveform, and mainly this factor 1 plus k a naught, this is the Bark-Hussein criteria. So this Bark-Hussein criteria is followed uh, to produce the oscillation, and the frequency of oscillation and the condition of oscillation. Condition of oscillation means the value of this a naught can be found from this Bark-Hussein criteria, and this is the equation because we know from the previous analysis of the feedback. So this feedback voltage gets fed to the input while this output voltage is appearing across this feedback network. So when you take the ratio, so that ratio offers the uh, feedback factor k. But right now, as the reactive elements are included within this feedback network, so k depends upon the frequency, and that basically we want, because based on the frequency dependency factor of k, we want to produce the oscillation for that frequency for which this network provides this additional 180 degree phase shift. Let's see. Here I just have considered the feedback network where this output voltage is appearing at this terminal and the feedback voltage is appearing at the other terminal. And here I am assuming the three current I1 for the first loop, I2 for the second loop, and the I3 for the third loop, and where K represents the ratio of the feedback voltage to the output voltage. But the feedback voltage, you can see from here that since I3 is the current I have defined for this third loop, so I3 times this R is the feedback voltage VF, and V0 is the uh, output voltage of the circuit, and that acts as an input voltage to the feedback network. Now if I apply KVL to this loop, so this equation will be resulted. Similarly, applying KVL at each and every loop, so this is the KVL when I applied at the second loop, and This is at the third loop. So now this equation we can use to form where this Xc, I'm assuming this is the reactance part of this capacitor, and now this linear equation can be formed, can be used to form a matrix. So this is basically the elements associated with this current. Now what is I3? From the analysis, matrix analysis of the circuit equation, we know I3 can be found as the determinant of this one, where I'm replacing the third column by this one V0 0 0, because I just want to find this I3 divided by the determinant of the entire matrix. This one, this matrix. Yes, this is the determinant. Delta represents determinant of this matrix. So these two equations I have written from the last slide, where I3 takes this kind of form, where this delta is actually represents the determinant of the matrix, and the numerator in the I3 is the same determinant, but the third column is replaced by these V0 0 0. Now upon finding this determinant, the determinant can be represented in this form, where I'm going to replace this Xc, which actually represents the reactance of the for the capacitor, and upon replacement of this Xc and separating out the real part and imaginary part, the determinant can be represented as shown over here. Next one is the finding of the determinant for this matrix, which exists at the numerator of this I3. Now since these two elements are 0, so only V0, if we consider for V0, so the determinant will result is this one divided by this delta, and this delta actually this one. And since K I have defined in my earlier slide as Vf divided by V0, where Vf is equals to I3 times R. So now I have replaced this I3 over here. So this V0 gets cancelled from both the numerator and denominator, and I square gets multiplied with this R, producing this R to the power cube, R to the power 3 divided by this delta. So this is the determinant which has both the real part and the imaginary part, and this is the expression of K, where this determinant exists at the denominator. Now from the Barkhausen criteria, we know that K times A0 is equals to -1, where A0 must be a real, because A0 is basically the midband open loop gain, so that A0 must be a real quantity. Therefore, in order to be equal these two sides, K also be the real quantity. But at the denominator of the expression of K, this determinant exists which has both the real and imaginary part. So therefore, in order to satisfy this condition, we must have to make this imaginary part is equals to 0. In other word, you can say that right now this entire circuit is becoming a resonator, and the resonance is taking place at omega equals to omega naught, because at that particular frequency this additional 180-degree phase difference is taking place through the feedback network. And we know at resonance all of the reactive elements goes to 0, or the reactive part of the circuit goes to 0, and the reactive part is represented by the imaginary part of this determinant. Therefore the imaginary part of this K we have to make it 0, so which implies that the imaginary part which exists in the expression of this delta, the determinant, we have to make it 0. Now once you make it, so we can easily obtain the frequency of oscillation, which is omega naught, and for phase shift oscillator the frequency of oscillation is equals to 1 over root over 6 times RC. Now replacing this omega naught from here into this equation, because this part is 0, now K is completely real quantity having the this expression at the denominator, and where I'm going to replace this omega naught by this expression, and upon replacing this, what I'm getting this K at omega equals to omega naught becoming -1 by 29. So we can write 29 times K at omega equals to omega naught is equals to minus 1. Now if you compare this expression with the Barkhausen criteria, which is K times A naught is equals to minus 1, we can easily find what should be the value of A naught to sustain the oscillation. That is the 29. So A naught must be 29. Let's consider a practical design of the phase shift oscillator which has a frequency of oscillation of 2 kHz. This is the expression for the frequency of oscillation we know, and the frequency of oscillation is given, so you can find the omega naught from the given value of f naught, and I'm assuming that the R in the expression of the frequency of oscillation, I'm assuming that is 10 kilo ohm. So from this expression I can easily find out what will be the capacitor necessary to produce the required oscillation. So that is 3.24 nanofarad. And the condition of oscillation we know, that is 29k is equals to minus 1, and if I multiply this minus 1 on the both sides, so I am having this minus 29k is equals to 1. Why I did this thing? Because at the beginning of this lecture I told that in designing the phase shift oscillator or any kind of oscillator, we generally prefer that the base amplifier should have the gain such that the output of the base amplifier differs from the input by 180-degree phase. So that is why this A naught I am considering this minus 29, so that I am going to design the base amplifier which has the gain minus 29, and by designing the base amplifier having this minus 29 gain, I am simultaneously satisfying the requirement of the condition of oscillation, that means the gain should be 29 and the output and the input will differ by 180 degree. So the initial difference between the output and input should be 180 degree, and the additional 180 degree phase difference will be provided when the signal will pass through the feedback network. So I'm going to design the thing, the oscillator over here having uh, using the operational amplifier, where this R2 and R1, I'm choosing over R1 is 10 kilo ohm and R2 is 290 kilo ohm. So since this operational amplifier is in inverting configuration, so this output and input, the gain, the ratio of the output and input is the gain, which is A naught, and which has the expression of minus R2 by R1, and since R2 I am choosing as 290 kilo ohm and R1 10 kilo ohm, so the gain will be the 20 minus 29. The phase shift oscillator that I have just designed, the schematic of that I have represented on the right hand side, and the circuit I'm represented over here, and I will simulate it and show you how the phase shift oscillator actually works. But there is a difference between the schematic you are observing on the right hand side and the schematic what you are observing on the simulator over here. You can see on the right hand side on that diagram, each of these three resistors are connected over here. That means the 10 kilo ohm, one resistance are connected over here, another one, another directly from this terminal to the ground, and R1 resistance is connected over here and R2 is connected over here. But practically when you have to implement this phase shift oscillator using operational amplifier, so it is better to connect that 10 kilo ohm resistance what is connected from this point to this ground, and you are observing on the right hand side diagram. So that resistance you can directly connect with this terminal as shown in the schematic, because due to presence of the ground potential over here, this point or this terminal is at virtual ground. So connecting this 10 kilo ohm resistance at this terminal is equivalent to connecting the 10 kilo ohm resistance with this. But instead of that, if you follow the circuit what I have represented on the right hand side, so that circuit is purely to make you understand the diagram and the concept behind the phase shift oscillator. But practically, if you are going to use that circuit what I have represented on the right hand side, so that circuit may not work based on the design what I have done in the previous slide, because in that case one resistor 10 kilo ohm resistance will appear from this terminal to the ground, another 10 kilo ohm resistance which is mentioned as R1 in the diagram, that will be connected from this terminal to the virtual ground. So basically these two 10 kilo ohm resistance will appear parallel to each other, and that will make these equivalent resistance half. That means that actually 5 kilo ohm resistance will be, you will effectively can get. So that make a problem. So that is why you can connect this 10 kilo ohm resistance directly at this point, and that I have done. Next thing is that the condition of the oscillation we have obtained, that is 29, and in my calculations the R2 resistance what I have obtained, that is 290 kilo ohm if R1 resistance, although the name are just different in the schematic and in the diagram, but that doesn't make any problem. So the resistance what is appearing over here, that is 10 kilo ohm, and in order to make the gain 29, this resistance at the feedback path must be 290 kilo ohm, but here I have kept 350 kilo ohm because in practical circuit we generally keep this resistance a bit larger than the required one, or than the resistance what you have calculated, because you can keep it 29, you can keep it 29, or you can make it 20, gain 29 by keeping this 290 kilo ohm, but keeping this 290 kilo ohm will make the uh, will take the production of the oscillation much more longer than if you increase this resistance more than the 290 kilo ohm. So that is why I have kept it 350 kilo ohm. So let's see first. uh, I'm simulating it with 350 kilo ohm. Look at here. So I'm simulating these things, and look, this simulation producing is these oscillations. Now let's start this oscillation once again, and right now we are going to observe this time. uh, Look at here, the time at which the simulation takes is increasing. 67, around 67 millisecond the oscillation is appearing. Now if I use a bit smaller resistance close to 290 kilo ohm, that is I'm suppose using uh, 310 kilo ohm. So initially we have seen it took 60, around 67 millisecond to produce the oscillation when this resistance was 350 kilo ohm, which makes the gain 35. Now I am using 3110 kilo ohm. Now let's observe at which time. Look, already it crossed this 67 millisecond, and near about 229 millisecond this oscillation is appearing. So it took a longer time to produce the oscillation because of the smaller resistance we have used. So that is why in case of practical circuit we generally use a bit higher resistance, and that makes the gain a bit higher than we have obtained mathematically. So this is the operation of the phase shift oscillator. This is the circuit, and this is the output waveform, sinusoidal waveform. So pure sinusoidal waveform we can obtain. Next is the Wien-Bridge oscillator, and this is the diagram, circuit diagram of the Wien-Bridge oscillator, where I have used this operational amplifier, and this R2 and R1 resistance is forming the negative feedback, where this RC, the series RC and this parallel RC pairs, these are forming the positive feedback. And this circuit just represents the feedback network, where this V0 is appearing at this one terminal of this series RC, and this VF, which is the feedback voltage, which is appearing at the positive terminal of the operational amplifier, and which is coming from this terminal. So therefore, as we know, the feedback factor is equals to the feedback voltage divided by the output voltage, and from this circuit we can easily find out what is the feedback voltage, which is by applying simple voltage divider rule. So Vf is equals to V0 times Z divided by the reactance part of the capacitor plus R plus this Z, and this Z actually represents the equivalent impedance of this parallel RC network. So Z I have shown over here, and Xc represents the reactance part of the for the capacitor. Therefore, so this will be the, by replacing this Z by its actual expression, I am obtaining this Vf as shown over here. Now I am going to replace this Xe in this expression, and finally the expression for K should have these two factors. One is the real factor and another is the imaginary factor. So in this, as we know from our previous analysis, that at resonance these only the real part should be in the expression, but the imaginary part should be 0. So here also I am going to perform the same step. So this is the expression what I have obtained, and I just made this imaginary part is equals to 0, and making this imaginary part equals to 0, I am obtaining the frequency of oscillation, which is equals to 1 over RC. And since this imaginary part is equals to 0, so right now this K is becoming 1 over 3. But from the definition of this K, this 1 over 3 is equals to Vf over this V naught. Now since it is an operational amplifier, this Vf is or this circuit you can think of like a non-inverting configuration where Vf is applied as an input to the positive terminal. Now if you are considering it is a non-inverting configuration, then the gain for the non-inverting op amp we know that is V naught by Vf, because Vf is the input voltage I am considering at present. So V naught divided by Vf is equals to 1 plus R2 by R1, and that I have obtained this ratio Vf to V naught I have obtained 1 by 3. So here I am writing 3, and from this expression I am obtaining this R2 must be is equals to twice R1, and this is the condition for oscillation. So this is the frequency of oscillation. The simple expression for the frequency of oscillation is 1 over RC, and R2 is equals to twice R1. This is the condition of oscillation for Owen bridge oscillator. Let's design the Owen bridge oscillator practically, as I have done for the phase shift oscillator. Now here I'm going to design the Owen bridge oscillator having the frequency of oscillation 2 kHz. So we know this is a simple expression for the frequency of oscillation, and this is the condition of oscillation. I'm considering both R1 and R is equals to 10 kilo ohm, and that provides this value of C, which will be equals to the 8 nanofarad. And finally, as R1 is 10 kilo ohm, R2 must be 20 kilo ohm. So that is why uh, I'm using this R2 as 20 kilo ohm. Now let's see the practical design or the simulation using these values. The parameters that I have obtained for our Owen bridge oscillator, those parameters I have used here to simulate such a Owen bridge oscillator. So you can see these R4 and R3, they have same values, that is 10 kilo ohm, and the C1 and C2, both of them have these 8 nanofarad values. Now this R1, as I have assumed it is 10 kilo ohm, R2 must be 20 kilo ohm, but as I told, in for our practical purpose we generally keep this gain a bit higher than what we obtain by our calculation. So that is why I use this 21 kilo ohm instead of 20 kilo ohm. Now let's see how it is producing this oscillation. Look at here, the oscillation is produced more quickly in comparison to the phase shift oscillator, and that is why when bridge oscillator, many times this oscillator is preferred one over the phase shift oscillators. Now I'm going to demonstrate the general form of oscillator circuit. So here the amplifier I have used as any high gain amplifier you can consider, although the symbol is looking like operational amplifier. So either you can use operational amplifier or any type of high gain amplifier can be used over here, and which has the high gain along with the high input impedance. Since the high input impedance exists for the amplifier, so that is why I'm considering this I, which is entering into the device, that current is equals to 0. The main concern in deriving the general form is basically the finding out the elements, what will be the elements, and that actually will replace the Z1, Z2 and Z3, because these resistances actually I have represented over here, these are the reactive elements. Now in order to make a general form of oscillator circuit, which one will be the capacitor and which one will be replaced by the inductor, so that thing we have to find out. This circuit basically represents the this one, where this AV times V13 along with this R 0, this block represents the amplification nature of this high gain amplifier, which has a high input impedance. And since it has a high input impedance and no current can flow through the device where this is connected to terminal 1, so that is why this terminal 1 is shown open, because this, due to the high input impedance, no current can flow into the device. So that is why terminal 1 is kept open. And as I told, this block represents the amplification nature of the voltage amplifier. So AV is the open loop, open load gain, and V13 is the input voltage appearing across the input impedance of the device. Since the input impedance is very high, I've kept it open, so voltage potential is appearing across this 1 and 3 terminal is V13, and that is being amplified by its amplification factor is small v. And finally, A naught represents the open loop with load voltage gain of for the amplifier, and A naught will be the output voltage divided by the input voltage, and the output voltage which is appearing across these terminals. So the output voltage will consider will take into account the load impedance. The load impedance actually the this entire combination of these Z2, Z1 and Z3. Next one is the K. K is the feedback factor. The voltage which is appearing across the Z1, that voltage gets fed back to this amplifier. So voltage across the Z1 is being fed back to this amplifier. So that is why the output voltage, the part of the output voltage appearing across the Z1 can be found by the voltage divider rule, because K is equals to Vf divided by V naught. So Vf is the potential across the Z1, and which is derived one from the output voltage. So that is taking this from this minus Z1 divided by Z1 plus Z3. And I'm going to form the expression for the Bark-Hessian criteria. So A naught times K, I'm taking this multiplication of these two expressions, where ZL is the parallel combination of Z2 and the Z1 plus Z3 as shown over here. Now I'm going to replace the expression for ZL, and finally this A naught times K should have this kind of form. As I told, all these three Z1, Z2 and Z3 are basically the reactive elements. That means either capacitor or inductor. We have to find out which one is capacitor and which one will be the inductor to produce the oscillation. So therefore, in general, I am considering the Z1 is JX1, X2 and X3 for Z2 and Z3, and I am replacing in this expression. And upon replacement, we are getting this expression where this minus term is appearing by the multiplication of two imaginary term, that is the j term is providing this minus over here and over here. So this is the initial expression we have obtained in my last slide, and now we are going to treat this expression in a similar way we have treated our phase shift oscillator and the Wien-Bridge oscillator. That means at resonance, we know the imaginary part of this vector a naught times k must be 0. So therefore, I am making this part is equal to 0 in order to make this imaginary part 0. So that will keep only this minus x2 times x3 plus x1 in the circuit, and finally from this expression x2 x3 plus x1 can be replaced by minus x2, and upon replacement and taking the minus on the other side, we are getting this expression. So a naught k is equals to AV times x1 divided by x2. Now, as we know, the minus a naught k is equals to 1. So x1 and x2, since there exists no negative sign, so x1 and x2 must be of similar type, which means if x1 is an inductor, x2 must be an inductor. If x1 is a capacitor, x2 must be a capacitor, and similar statement holds for the x2 and x1. But x3 must be the different one. So if x1 and x2 are inductors, then x3 must be a capacitor, or vice versa. Now we are going to design a practical circuit using this configuration. So first one is the Colpite oscillator. You can see, comparing this expression, you can see for the Colpite oscillator, x1 and x2 are the two capacitors. So x1 and x2 are two capacitors. So x1 is that one which has one terminal connected with the ground. So this one is connected with the ground, and other terminal is connected with the input terminal of the device. So this one is x1, or the z1 in that case we can say, and z2, which is actually being replaced by this c2, which has one terminal connected with the output terminal, you can see from here, and another terminal is connected with the ground, you can see. And Z3, this is the only component which differs from these two, and that is obviously be an inductor. And the one terminal is connected with the output terminal, and another terminal is connected with the input. So this is the inductor. And this circuit is called the Colpite oscillator. Similarly, if you replace these two capacitors by inductor and this inductor by a capacitor, so that circuit becomes this Hartley oscillator. Let's find out the frequency of oscillation and the condition of oscillation for the Colpite oscillator and the Hartley oscillator. So first of one is the first one is the Colpite oscillator. The similar procedure what I have used to find out the frequency of oscillation for the Wien-Bridge oscillator as well as for the phase shift oscillator, the same step I have to follow over here. That means by making the imaginary part with equal to 0, and after replacing the x1 and x2 and x3 with their corresponding elements, that means as for Colpite oscillator, the x1 and x2 will be the capacitors and the x3 will be an inductor. So after replacing all these things, we can easily find out the frequency of oscillation is this one. And the condition of oscillation can be obtained from this expression what I have obtained in my earlier slide, where x1 and x2 will be of similar type. So I have just written this x1 as c1 and x2 as c2. Similarly, for Hartley oscillator, I am replacing this x1 and x2 by two inductor, and the third one x3 by the capacitor, and the frequency of oscillation I am obtaining as shown in this expression. And similarly, following the same equation, the condition of oscillation we are obtaining as shown in this expression.